what's up? My name's Alea. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to another reading vlog. So today we're going to be doing a Winterween read-a-thon. So if you don't know, Gabby from Gabby Reads here on YouTube hosts this annual read-a-thon, and it's called Winterween, and it's all about bringing these spooky vibes from Halloween into the winter to hold us over until we get to Summerween and Halloween and all those lovely things. So basically, we're just going to be reading a whole bunch of spooky books and maybe also some other genres that fit with the theme, because this year's theme for Winterween is vampires. And I'm really excited because I have some vampire books on my TBR, and I also have some other spooky books and also just like witchy books, vampire books, things like that I've been wanting to get to. So with that, let's get into the prompts for Winterween and my TBR. So here are the little prompts from Gabby. There's 5 of them. So the first one is to read a book in the darker at night. So that can be any book. The second one is to read a horror or a thriller. And I have some of those on my TBR. The third one is to read a book with red on the cover or blood. And I have some ideas for that. And then 4, I'm leaving a little bit more open, and it's to read a book with vampires, werewolves, or witches, and then it says etc. So kind of like any paranormal creatures, and I'm really excited about this prompt. And then prompt 5 is to read a 2025 release you never got around to. So I've been putting some thought into that prompt as well. So with that being said, this is my little TBR. Now this is kind of tentative. I might end up putting some other books in here too. I do have a few books on Kindle Unlimited that are more like romances that have vampires and that kind of thing that I might slot in if I feel like I'm in the mood for a romance and need kind of like a palate cleanser from the horror. But for now, these are kind of the main ones that stuck out to me after looking at the prompts. So the first one, So Thirsty, that would work for prompt 2 to read a horror or a thriller, and prompt 3 to read a book with blood on the cover. And it also has to do with vampires. So it also fits for prompt 4. And I could also read it in the darker at night. So it could count for a whole bunch of prompts. And then the second one is Play Nice by Rachel Harrison. So this was a 2025 release that I never got around to, and I'm not sure about this one. I really wanted to listen to it on audio, but I haven't been able to get my hands on the audiobook, and so I might end up reading the ebook, but we'll see. I saw it at Barnes & Noble a few weeks ago, and I didn't pick it up because I read the first like page, and I kind of have this thing where if a book doesn't pull me in from the first sentence, then I'm not going to buy it, and this one didn't. And so usually, if it's good enough for me to buy, I end up really enjoying it. So since it didn't really make the cut for me, I don't know if I'm gonna love this or not, but I do want to try it. I think the cover is so cute and fun. It's like a haunted house horror, and the cover is giving kind of like demon in the house vibes, which I love. Love a haunted house horror. And then the next one I want to get to is called Always Practice Safe Hex. So this is in a series. I believe it's book 4 in the Stay a Spell series by Juliet Cross. And this is a series that I started, I think, a couple years ago, and I was really enjoying it. And then I kind of got like partway through book 3 and put it down, and then kind of just put the series on pause. But I do really want to finish it out because I really like these books. And this one is following one of the witchy sisters in this family, and she, I think, has a romance with this guy who's a Grim, which is like a Grim Reaper, which would be really fun. So that could count for prompt 4 to read a book with vampires, werewolves, witches, etc. And then next I have the Macabre by Kosoko Jackson. So this one has blood on the cover, which is great. It's a horror, and it was a 2025 release I didn't get to. And this one, I think, is the one on this TBR I'm the most excited for. I almost bought this at a bookstore a few months ago, and it just looks really good. I think it's about this person who is an artist, and their paintings have some almost like eldritch god kind of energy to them, where they're kind of sinister and creepy and magical, and I think people can go into the paintings, and the paintings are all very like horror vibes. And so I think it has something to do with people going into paintings, and something about that there's a series of these paintings that this artist did, and one of them is like lost. And I don't know if it's like if you get the paintings together, some crazy shit happens or what, but I kind of want to go in blind. It sounds cool. I like the premise of like the spooky paintings in a horror novel. I think that could be really fun. Also, the cover is crazy gorgeous, stunning. And then next I have First Light by Liz Karen. So this is a vampire young adult novel, and it's a sequel to First Light, which I read and really enjoyed. It's vampires, but it's set in the desert, and I really love that. So this one is the sequel, and I've been meaning to pick it up, and I just haven't gotten to it yet, and I really would like to because it has really good vampire vibes. And then the last one I'm thinking about is Coffin Moon, which is another vampire horror, and I'm trying to stick to the theme this year, can you tell? But Coffin Moon, I think it has a road trip element. I think we're following a guy and his daughter. I don't know. I think they're going after some vampires. Again, I want to go in blind, but I was looking at this at the bookstore the other day and it looked really good. And I haven't heard too many reviews for it though, but I'm definitely curious. I love the cover too with the skull with the fangs. I think it's really fun. Anyways, so with that being said, knowing this is a tentative TBR, and who knows what I'll read by the end of this vlog, let's get into the Winterween reading. Hello, my sweet petunias. Please excuse the crazy hair buns for Valentine's Day. I was just pre-filming some February videos, but I wanted to give you a little update. So I've decided to switch up my TBR a little bit.
Dishonor on you! Dishonor on your cow!
I have some vampire books I want to read, and since the readathon is vampire themed, I thought it would be fun to read some of these. I was looking at my shelf, realizing, I think there's a lot of things going on in the world right now. They're not so great, and I feel like reading some vampire books might help me, and there's not nearly enough on my TBR. So I thought I would pick up 3 more. So these are all ones I've been meaning to read for a while. So I have Carmilla, and this is the edition that's edited by Carmen Maria Machado. So this is one that I've been wanting to read for a while. And then I also have this really cool graphic novel that I bought in Minneapolis, I don't know, maybe a year ago, and it's called When I Arrived at the Castle by Emily Carroll. So this is a vampire lesbian horror graphic novel, and the cover is hello, stunning. And so I wanted to get into this. It's also really short, so I thought this would be a really good read to kind of jumpstart my reading for this vlog. And then I also would like to get to Silver Under Nightfall by Wrench of Echo. This is one I've been meaning to read for ages, but it's so long and I'm kind of intimidated by it. But I think this is about 2 rival groups of vampires in this like dystopian world, and I think they're fighting and stuff. And maybe it's like vampires and vampire hunters. I don't know exactly. But I'm excited to get into it. I think we're following this guy named Remy who's a half vampire, and I think he's fighting some evil vampires. And that's all I really know. But it sounds really good and I want to get into it. Also, super cool cover. And I think there's a sequel to this as well. I'm not sure if it's a duology or if there's more, but I know there's at least one sequel that's already out. So I want to add those to my TBR because I want to read some just like real good vampire books in this vlog. And so I'm going to be picking up, I think I'm going to start with this and then we'll get into Carmilla as our second book, because these also fit with the prompts, because some of the prompts are like read book with blood on the cover or red on the cover or vampires, and so that can also help us jumpstart some of those readathon prompts as well. And then I also have some crafts I kind of want to do. So originally I was just going to keep this as a reading vlog, but I've also been really in a crochet mood as well, so I want to do some crochet, and I found this pattern for this bat garland, vampire bat garland, and it's really cute. It's a free pattern on YouTube, and so I ordered some little safety eyes. These are little eyeballs to put on the little bats, and I want to use some scrap yarn I have and make this little bat garland because it fits with the theme. And I have this really kind of old orange yarn that I used for my Halloween costume last Halloween, and then I also have this like purpley yarn that I thought we could use and make some little bats with the little black eyes, and I thought it'd be kind of fun and cute. And I could also listen to an audiobook while I'm doing that too if I wanted. And so I want to do some bats. I want to crochet some of those in this vlog. And then I also have this ongoing project I've been working on where I'm putting together a box of like crochet stuff for one of our family members who had a baby, and so I'm making like baby booties and a baby blanket, and I found this pattern today for a really cute matching baby beanie and booty set that's like lemons. And I thought it was really cute. And I already have yarn that's the perfect colors for this. And so I really want to make that. And I thought I would just throw it in this vlog because we're already doing stuff. And so I have this really pretty like light green yarn and this yellow yarn, and I wanted to put these together and make a little baby beanie and maybe some booties too if we have time. And so I think that's kind of the stuff I'm going to be crocheting and reading along with my TBR that I already told you about. So without any further ado, let's get into the reading. She can see the animated leaves and she likes it. No. What do you think now? Silly cat. Hi, good morning. Oh my goodness. That's a sweet baby. Are you fascinated? Oh, it's fascinating stuff. Yeah. Good. Hey, don't eat my computer. Hello, my darlings. So, I have done some reading and crochet since I talked to you last. So, first of all, I want to show you this adorable beanie I made. And this is the little lemon beanie that I made for our relative's baby. And I think it's so cute. Look, it's a little lemon head. It reminds me of the lemon guys from Adventure Time. Oh my God, fierce. And I love the little leaf too. It's so soft. And so I did this, but I haven't done the beanies yet. Beanies. I haven't done the baby booties yet that match this, so I still kind of want to work on that too. But I also finished two books since I spoke to you last. So I finished When I Arrived at the Castle by Emily Carroll, and I also finished Carmilla. And I want to talk to you about these before I forget my thoughts. So, first off, with this one, the art is so stunning in this. It really, truly is beautiful. I love the art style. I will say I read Emily Carroll before. I read her like horror graphic novel short story collection. I think it's called Through the Woods, something like that. Anyways, that one was really good, very scary, beautiful art, similar to this. But I will say, I think that one, the stories are really well done. This one, I felt like it was very much about the art and very much about like the lesbian vibes. And I got done with it and I actually had to like Google this book and be like, so the plot twist at the end, like, what did that mean? Like, I didn't get it. And if I have to read a whole book and then look up what the book that I just read means when I have an English degree, girl, where's the plot? Was it there? Because I was confused. And I don't like that because you never want to read a book and feel like, am I dumb or was it just not written well enough for me to understand what the plot was or like what the twist was and what it meant for the rest of it? Because one thing I noticed in here is the art's stunning, it's gorgeous, but there's not a lot of words, and sometimes, like, and the pictures aren't clear enough for you to understand the plot without words, if that makes sense. So, I feel like I needed some more explanation at the end of, like, who the characters really were, because part of the whole thing is we're following this lady who's a cat woman, and she comes to this manor, and she knows that there's this entity there, and she's there to kill this entity. So she walks in, she meets this vampire countess lady, and she's there to take her out, and you know that. But it seems like they have a previous relationship or they've met before or something. And also the Catwoman seems to be looking around the house for someone, and you don't really have any context as to, like, their relationship or who this Countess Vampire Lady is or who the cat lady's looking for or what the hell's going on here. Besides the fact that, like, there seems to be some sapphic vibes between the two of them in this creepy ass castle, and the Countess Lady is very creepy. Um, and so there's a lot of imagery in here of people maybe not being who they are on the outside, like on the inside they're different, almost like skinwalker kind of stuff, I guess. But um I feel like this would have been really, really good if the story would have been a little more clear, and I needed like a few more words of explanation, I guess, is what I need, especially at the end. But it was cool. I think I would give it a three just because I love the art. But again, this is a good example of a graphic novel. Beautiful, stunning. Where's the story? The story was definitely like more of an afterthought in my opinion, which I hate to say that, but that's the truth of it. Mary, that's all I have to say about that. And then Carmilla, I finished this just this morning and I really liked this. I don't know what I thought this was going to be, but um this is a classic story, and I knew it was, again, sapphic vampires, but I didn't really know anything more than that. And so this is a classic, technically, by Joseph Sheridan Lefanu? I don't know, I don't speak French, but, I thought this was a really accessible classic, it's really well done, it was entertaining, I read the whole thing in 2 sittings, which, I mean, isn't saying a lot because it's a short book, but normally classics take me a while because of the way that they're written, and so this is also edited by Carmen Maria Machado, so I think she may have done some slight edits on this classic story, to change some words and things and make it a little bit more readable for the modern reader, which I appreciated. However, There's an introduction to this book, which I read and thought it was extremely good. And then I was like, I'm curious about what Machado is talking about because she does this introduction where she's talking about how the author of this book basically found these old letters and based the story of Carmilla off of these old letters without giving credit to the letters, if that makes sense. Almost like he ripped off this actual real historical, like sapphic story by intercepting these letters between this woman and a doctor. And she talks about how this scholar from the University of Iowa like found the letters, and it's this whole like tale at the beginning, right? That supposedly this like historical discovery of these letters was like a big thing. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so I went and I Googled it. And turns out, I found this whole thread on Reddit. And I also read some interviews with Machado to confirm that this is the case. And the people on Reddit were mad that Machado did this introduction because they were like, it's not real. Like, it's not true. Like, she made it up because her whole thing at the beginning was talking about how this is a fiction story and people have always thought it was fiction throughout history, but it is in fact like there's nonfiction elements from these letters that the author incorporated in. And apparently she was trying to do almost like a story within a story kind of setup for this, where she wrote this introduction that makes it sound like there's these nonfiction historical like things to add to the story, but they're not true. And so people on Reddit were pissed because they were like, if you don't know anything about this classic and you pick up this edition, you're gonna think that the author is this like total asshole who like ripped off these letters, and it's not true. And she just like wrote it to add something to the story in this particular edition. And so I personally was very put off by that because I definitely thought that it was true when I read it. And had I not gone and researched it, I would not have known that it was more of like a creative writing stylistic choice that she agreed to with the editor. And she talks about it in interviews that like that wasn't the original plan, but she decided to kind of get jiggy with the introduction because she thought it was like cool. And then her footnotes too throughout that she added, I liked the ones that gave context to different countries that were called something different in this story. Like the historical context was nice. But there's some where she just is like, again, like adding in other fictional bits that she wrote that aren't in the original story just to like add to it, I guess. But it's kind of unnecessary and feels disjointed from the story and feels like she's kind of just adding in things that are just like not true, that just to kind of put her own spin on the story, I guess. But I feel like the classic story itself is so good that it didn't need that. And it was just really sort of confusing and misleading. And I'm glad that I did the research on it. Otherwise, I would have a completely different like thought on that. So I really like the story of Carmilla. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this. Well, I would recommend this edition, I suppose, but just know that the introduction by Machado is fiction and not nonfiction, because that needed to be explicitly clear and it was not. And it was very confusing and frustrating to have to go and like do research on your own as the reader when you're like, I just want to read Carmilla. Where are the lesbian vampires? You know what I mean? Anyways, but overall, the story is really good. So we're following this girl, Laura, in the actual Carmilla story. And she is living in this isolated castle with her dad, and one day they run into this mom and daughter on the road, and the mom is very secretive and she basically says, hey, like my daughter's injured, can she come and stay with you for a few weeks because I have to go on this like life or death trip and I have to go like right now. And they're like, yeah, sure, because they're nice people. And it turns out this girl, the daughter that ends up staying with them, the whole thing is a ruse and she's a vampire and she's going around killing a lot of young women, sucking their blood and killing them. And Carmilla and our girl Laura have an interesting friendship, maybe a little more than friendship. Carmilla's very has some like sexual appetites, it seems. Also says some very strange things about death. And so she, it turns out, is actually like an old countess who used to live in like a neighboring what is now the ruins of a castle and village nearby to where Laura and her dad live in their castle. And so they're dealing with this vampire essentially in their home. And Laura's having like weird nightmares and stuff. And she and well, when she was young, she also got attacked by a vampire. And it's kind of like been in the forefront of her mind for a long time. And when she meets Carmilla, she recognizes her as the vampire that bit her as a kid. And she doesn't really understand that it was a vampire. She just knows that she was attacked by something in her bed in the middle of the night. And so she's like, oh my gosh, like she's like taken aback as soon as she sees her. And then Carmilla's like, oh no, like I had a strange dream when I was young about being attacked by this thing and you were there and I recognize you. And so Laura thinks that they have this like same dream experience. And so therefore they're like instant friends and they have this kind of strange um connection, almost like it's a fated connection kind of thing. But Laura's definitely like she's very enticed by Carmilla, but she's also at the same time very like off put by her because she has some like strange behavior and things. And anyways, it's very well done. I feel like it was well paced. I was very interested to like continue reading. It's not written in a way that's hard to understand, and I really enjoyed it. I think it's definitely got some really fun vampire vibes in here. Also, if you're into like dead people stuff and like the way that people tried to prevent vampires from coming back from the dead, or like people coming back from the dead as revenants when they maybe committed a suicide or died in a tragic way, in the way that people would unbury them and have to do things to the body to make sure they didn't come back as vampires. If you're into that, you'd be into this. I think if you're into Blood on Her Tongue, that fiction story, you would really like Carmilla as well. So I really enjoyed this. I think it was great. I'm going to give it a 4 stars. Really enjoyed this. This I'm giving a 3, and I think that's a little generous. So that's where I'm at with my reading, and my plan is to start Silver Under Nightfall tonight. I'm really excited about this. And then in terms of the reading prompts for the readathon, so I read a book with blood on the cover. In fact, I read 2 books with blood on the cover, and I read a book with vampires. And then, I read, this is a horror novel as well. And so I hit those 3 prompts. I still need to read a book in the dark, and I need to read a book that was a 2025 release that I've been meaning to get to. I think. I don't think that this graphic novel is a 2025, but let me just check. I don't think it is. Does it even say in here? I can't even find. It's a 2024, so no, this does not count. But I want to read the one by Kosoko Jackson really bad. My friend Richie was talking about this author on a live show for my book club, the Big Bad Booty Bitches book club. We met for a live show in January, and Richie was talking about Kosoko Jackson being a really good author, and I've been wanting to read The Macabre as this prompt of reading a book that came out in 2025 that I didn't get to that I wanted to get to. I think I want to dog ear that for that prompt. So we still need to do some reading at night, still need to read that other book, and I want to read some more vampire books. The reading is going really well and I'm really excited. I haven't read vampires for a long time, and so I'm having a really good time with that. So with that being said, let's go do some more reading and some more crochet. my sweet petunias, good morning. I have a reading update for you and a crochet update. So I started reading Silver Under Nightfall, and I'm loving this so far. I'm kind of ashamed that it took me so long to pick this up, but we're following this main character, Remy, and he is the son of a very infamous vampire hunter. And in this world, we have seemingly humans and vampires, and there's a whole bunch of different courts of vampires, and some of them are nice-ish and some of them are evil. And then we've got like human royals and these vampire hunter human guys who drink this special potion, like blood potion, that makes them really strong so they can fight vampires. And so in this world there used to be these like famous vampire hunters, and his dad was one of them. And but people don't treat him very well. Like the human aristocracy treat him like garbage, treat Remy, the main guy, like garbage, because when his mom was pregnant with him, she got bit by a vampire. And so she was like turning into a vampire when she had him, and then she like died in childbirth. So people think of him as like a part vampire, even though he's really not. But he does seem to be really strong, and he's trained for a long time to hunt vampires, and he's got this like special magical weapon that he uses to kill them and stuff. And so it opens with him slaying a vampire woman, and essentially he's like a hired killer, kind of, where if somebody has gotten turned into a vampire, or there's like a rogue evil vampire like killing humans or whatever, he goes and is like a bounty hunter kind of, and he goes and takes them out and then gets reward money for it. And so he got hired to kill this vampire lady at the beginning, and she was a human woman that he used to know, and she was really nice to him. She was like one of the few rich humans that was actually like treated him like a person. And so he doesn't really want to kill her, but she's turned into a vampire, and now he's like has to. And so he's dealing with that, and then he also runs into these other evil vampires, and it opens with like some really high action fun vampire fight scenes, and I really like that. And I also like our main character Remy. He's dealing with a lot of stuff because his dad, the vampire hunter guy, is very evil, and just is very cruel to him. And his dad is old now, and he's dying, and his health is really bad, but he's still with it enough to make everybody's life hell. And he treats Remy very much like a pawn. And so he kind of made this deal, and Remy doesn't seem to be very old, doesn't say how old he is, but it seems like he's, I don't know, maybe like in his 20s, like early 20s. And his dad kind of set up this arrangement with I don't know if she's considered a queen, but she's like the wife of the human kind of king guy in this world, and she has information on what's going on with like the evil vampires they're trying to take out and stuff. And so his dad basically said, here, whenever my son's around, you can sleep with him, and then I'll like trade that for information. And so Remy's in this situation where he's had these relations with some of these like human aristocracy women, including like the kind of queen lady, and he doesn't want to be having these relations, but he also has to get like information for his dad and stuff. And the king like hates his dad and hates his family, and so it's kind of like they use him to get revenge on one another. Like his dad hates the king, and the king hates his dad, and
Revenge!
and stuff. So he's in this real weird middle position, and there's a lot of like court politics, high fantasy political stuff going on in here with the vampires, and the kind of human king and queen in here are kind of trying to have an alliance with this one court of vampires. I think it's the third court. And so that's happening. So Remy gets invited by the queen to go to this party where this alliance is like about to happen. And so there's vampires there and humans, and he's trying to like avoid the queen because he doesn't want to sleep with her. And then he runs into these vampires. And there's one vampire guy he ran into at the beginning of the book, and he has a fight with this vampire, and the vampire beats him. And Remy's never lost a fight with a vampire before, and the vampire like lets him go. But he runs into that vampire guy at this party, and he also meets this other vampire girl who's the I think like the princess of the third vampire court, and she is very cool. She's clearly very powerful, and she's the fiance of the vampire guy he fought with and lost to. And I think he ends up having like a throuple with them, I think later in this story, and he's immediately like very drawn to the princess girl, and it sounds like she's kind of like a good vampire, and I guess even the vampires in this world, they kind of view it as like there's some course of vampires that are good and some that are evil. And I think there's this thing called the rot, like a virus that's gonna start affecting some vampires. And so I think those are going to be like the new evil vampires. So I think the humans and the good vampires have to kind of like team up to take out the vampires that have been infected with this rot virus. Anyways, but Remy clearly has very strong sexual tension with the third court princess girl. I really like her. She seems very calm, but very like powerful and kind of like mysterious. She says that she's like a different kind of vampire that was born and not turned, which is interesting. And then her fiance, he's a lord. I think his name is Zidane. I don't know. Anyways, he's part of the summer court, and he's also really powerful too. And so is Remy. So it's kind of like this queer vampire fantasy political story that also has like some high action fight scenes in it. So, anyways, love that it's gay. I don't think I realized that it was gay. I don't even think I read the back of this. I think I just started reading. But it's very long, but I'm very into it so far. I think there's an audiobook too, but I'm kind of having fun reading it physically. So that's where I'm at with this. I've also heard this is a duology. I looked into it a little bit, and everybody says that the second book is really awful. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be continuing or not. I don't know. The reviews on Goodreads said that the second book, the characters are like kind of inconsistent with the first book, and that it wasn't very good. So I don't know if it was like intended to be one book and they stretched it out to make a duology out of it or what. But anyways, I'm enjoying this so far, having a good time with this. And then in terms of crochet, I wanted to show you what I've been working on. I've been working on this little bat. Anyways, this is my son. I literally felt like Victor Frankenstein, like putting this little guy together. Um, Actually, I think it's a girl because she's purple. But anyways, this is my little vampire bat. She looks silly vertically, but it's supposed to hang upside down by the feet on like a garland with a bunch of other ones. So I don't know how many of these I'm going to make. I might only make one in this vlog, but I might make some more later on. And then I've been working on the wings. So I only have one wing done. So I need to do the second wing today. But I wanted to kind of show you, if I can, what this is going to look like. So it's going to look sort of like can you see? There we go. Let's move the string. It's going to look sort of like that, which I think is cool. And the wing is kind of fun. It has these little like pointy bits on it. So it's going to be sort of like this, if you can see that. But there's going to be a second wing, and then you make all the bats and then put a string through like the feet so they hang upside down like vampire bats. It's kind of fun. Anyways, I'm loving this, and I also have never done amigurumi before, so this is my first time doing that. That's basically crochet where you make like a plushie or something where you're kind of like crocheting the outside and then you stuff it with stuffing or like scrap yarn like I did or whatever, and then you put the little black plastic safety eyes on there, and then you have this like 3D plushie kind of thing. So anyways, I've never done that before, so this is my first attempt at that, and it's been really fun learning that. I think it's cool. I definitely feel like Dr. Frankenstein bringing his little monster to life. I'm like, it's alive! So that's been really fun. So anyways, that's my little update. I need to sew the wing on so the string won't be here, and I need to make the other wing. So I'd like to do that today. And then I also have been thinking about my goal that I had for 2025, which was, well, I had two goals. One of them was to learn how to, and then I've also been thinking about my kind of New Year's resolutions for 2026, which were to learn how to sew and learn how to knit. And so I was thinking I kind of want to try my hand at knitting. So I want to go to Michael's and get some new knitting needles because I found a few like beginner knit patterns where you can knit with the knitting needles that have like the cord attached, and I want to try and make a washcloth. I also found a beginner pattern for making some like fingerless gloves, which I might try too, but I want to try and at least like see if I can get the stitches down and get into it a little bit, because I'm very intimidated by knitting, but I would like to learn how to knit because I've seen so many cool knitting patterns online. And I don't know, there's something about crochet that has just like come more naturally to me, but I would like to try knitting. So I think we're gonna go to Michael's, and then I want to finish the other wing of my bat and like finish assembling this little guy. And then I also want to start the macabre, and I also want to start Coffin Moon today. And so that's kind of my goal. That's what I'm thinking. And I would like to read one of those, or maybe some more of this too, tonight, like in bed with a flashlight, so we can hit the prompt of reading a book in the dark, because I think that would be really fun to do. So that's kind of what I'm thinking, and I will update you when I've read or made something else. These are somebody else's cats. The neighbor has little baby kittens, and they like to come and say hi, and they're super friendly. Hey. Oh, did this sweet girl. Hello, my sweet petunias. I have a little update for you on the reading, the knitting, the crochet, all the things. Apologies for this look. I feel like I'm posted up to the function looking like the ghost of Christmas past. It's Shark Week and I am fighting for my life. So excuse the pallor, the complexion, the low energy. Anyway, I wanted to show you what I've been up to. So remember that bat that we crocheted together as friends? I was going to make that into a bat garland and make some more of them, and I do still want to do that, but I was looking at the little bat some more, and I was thinking, this would be so cute as a keychain. So I went to Hobby Lobby the other night, and I got some hardware, and I want to show you what this kind of turned into. So I ended up making this really cute little bat keychain, and I think it's really fun. I got this like star hardware, and like the metal loops from Hobby Lobby, and then I also got this little star charm to go in there too. If you can see that, there's like a little star and then the little bat, and I think it looks really cute, and I'm really glad that I decided to do that. And since I just put the loop through the feet of the bat, I can just take it out if I make more bats and want to make it into a garland. So it's a very versatile little amigurumi piece. But I was thinking about maybe making some more of these and maybe putting them on my Depop and selling them. So let me know if you'd be interested in purchasing a little amigurumi crochet bat for me with the little star hardware, because I think it's really cool and it would be kind of fun to do some small crochet projects that I could like sell if you guys want to buy them. I have my Depop linked on my well, in the description of the video and also in the links on my main YouTube channel page. If you're interested in that, let me know if you like a bat or if you would like me to make some other little like crochet things and put them on there to sell, because I think that's really fun and I wanted to show you that little keychain because I think it's cute. And then in terms of knitting, I was really fighting for my life with the knitting too, to be honest. I cast it on like 4 or 5 different times with the little like dishcloth idea with the red and white yarn, and I just could not get it to work. My tension was so tight. The stitches were so tight on the needle that I couldn't like knit them, and I think I just didn't really have the stitches down, and the pattern was just a little bit hard for me to like wrap my head around, because you make like intentional holes in it as like part of a pattern, and it's hard to make like holes on purpose when you're new to knitting because it's really easy to just make them on accident. So I was definitely doing my stitches like totally wrong, and I got kind of frustrated and I put it down for a few days and I came back to it and I was like, okay, let me try a different pattern, a different yarn, because the girlies online said if you use a thicker weight yarn like this big fluffy stuff, this is the Bernat Fluffy from Michaels. Anyways, if you use something bigger, sometimes it's easier to like not have your yarn fall off your knitting needles and stuff. So I tried that with a different pattern and I started these fingerless gloves. I cast these on and I actually figured out my knit and purl stitches and I did it. And I crocheted, I knit this lovely little fingerless glove. I know it just looks like a pink rectangle. It literally is. Then you seam it up and leave a little hole for the thumb. And then I crocheted a little ruffle and a little stripe on the bottom in some like nasty little green mohair. And I wanted to show you this because I feel like this is just a really good example of how sometimes if you really are not doing well at something like a new hobby or whatever, you kind of just got to push through. Do you see what I'm saying? Isn't she cute? Anyways, so I need to make the second one. I casted it on with these little needles, and these are circular knitting needles, but I'm knitting it flat with circulars, which is kind of weird, but it works well because that way your stitches don't fall off your hook because they have the little plastic part to keep them on the back, which is helpful when you're new and your stitches are just like slipping all over. So anyways, I definitely had to frog my knitting with this though multiple times, which was terrifying because I've heard so many people say if you start frogging your knitting, which is where you have to like take it off the needles and pull back some rows because you messed up, it's really hard sometimes to get all the loops back on the knitting needles and it can like destroy your whole project. But I found some good tutorials on YouTube and I frogged this multiple times and the world didn't end, Mary, and we got through it. So that's pretty cool. I wanted to show you this. I think I'm gonna do the other one exactly the same, but I have some ideas for maybe making some more of these in the future and maybe crocheting some beads into like the top ruffle. Also for the ruffle, I just used a crochet pattern on YouTube that was for crochet fingerless gloves where they put a ruffle, and so I just kind of took that one piece of the pattern and put it on my knit ones, and the bottom part was just a row of single crochets in mohair into the knitting in that little green color at the bottom. So anyways, pretty basic stuff, but I think having the crochet and the knit together in one piece is really cool, and I want to experiment more with that. I think that's really fun, especially with mohair. I love using mohair, but I don't know if I'm ready to knit with it yet, so I think doing the crochet detailing really made it look finished and also covered up some of my little like mistakes along the edges. Like you can see like right here, it's not exactly even, you know, there's definitely mistakes, especially like you start down here and then you work your way up to the fingers. So there's more mistakes at the bottom than the top as I got like better throughout the progression of the piece. So that's interesting to see, but I'm really proud of this. I think it turned out really well. And sometimes you gotta just try something, and if you're not immediately good at it, that's okay. Just put it down, let it sit for a few days, come back, and you can have a breakthrough. So anyways, that's what I've been working on in terms of the crafting, but the reading's also been going really well. So I started I want to call it Macabre so bad, and I don't know what that is. The Kosoko Jackson one, it's called The Macabre. Anyway, I started this. It's really good. I will say it's definitely more fantasy than I was expecting. It opens like a horror novel. And the first chapter is a little bit slow, and then we hit this kind of twist at the end of the prologue, and that got me in a chokehold. It was fierce. I don't want to spoil it for you, but it definitely took a turn where you're like, oh, this is going to be creepy. This is going to be spooky ooky. And it is that. And it's basically following this guy who is a queer black man, and he is an artist. He's a painter. He has these weird times, though, where he almost goes into like a trance, like a fever dream kind of thing, where he has to paint these certain paintings. Like he feels called to call these paintings. Like he can't do anything until the painting is done. And when he finishes them, they don't really look like his art style. Like they're kind of different. They're really creepy. And he ends up submitting one to this like this art show at the British Museum, and he goes to London and takes this piece there. And when he arrives, he's greeted by these people who are part of this I don't know, magical group in the British Museum that helps like deal with magic and magical art pieces and like cursed objects and things of that nature, and they like neutralize them in order to keep people safe. Anyways, but they are basically like magicians, and they have powers and all this stuff, and so he kind of gets enveloped into this world of these magicians and all this art stuff, and he gets brought into this because they tell him that he's got this power where he's this blood descendant of this guy who made a series of 10 paintings called The Macabre, and these paintings are really powerful, and they have kind of like an evil curse magic about them. Because the guy who painted them was super, super powerful. And then throughout the bloodline, the powers kind of lessen. But the main character is descended from this guy, and his last name is Dumont, the guy who did the paintings. And so our main character is finding this out for the first time, and they're like, yeah, that's why you feel called to like paint these paintings, is you're repainting his paintings. It's like his paintings are like calling to you, like this is like a fate kind of thing. And so basically they say, we'll put you under like protection, and you can help us track down the rest of the Dumont paintings and try and neutralize them, because people are dying because of these paintings, because things come out of the paintings can pull you into them. It's a whole thing. He goes into a painting to kind of test this whole theory that he has power to like help neutralize the paintings. And he goes in, he meets his ancestor in the painting, he almost drowns. He kind of realizes that this magic is very real and powerful and dangerous and can really hurt people. And he's also like kind of getting to know his ancestor as he's going into the paintings, like seeing snippets of this guy's life, because every one of the 10 macabre paintings is like from a really awful thing that happened in his ancestor's life. Like the first one is about his sister's death, and it's sad, but it's also interesting if you're into that like generational trauma stuff. Very interesting. spooky horror, but also heavy on the magic fantasy vibes, if you're into that. Especially if you're into stories about art or like art dealership or magical items or having to like travel to different places. Like they go to Australia to try and recover one of these 10 paintings and neutralize it. So they're also like traveling. So there's like some like action fight scenes and adventure stuff and all that. So anyways, I'm really loving it so far. I think for me it's probably sitting at like a 4.5 maybe. I'm really liking it. The writing style is really fun. I like everything about it so far. It's definitely not what I thought. I thought it was going to be more horror, but I really like the fantasy. I think it's really fun. So loving that. Also, I did try the audiobook from Libro FM, but I don't like the audiobook. I wouldn't recommend the audio. There's something about the narration that I didn't like, the voices of it or the way that they were speaking. It didn't work for me. But maybe it will work for you. But I am reading it via ebook and that's working well. So I'm reading that, loving that, and that fulfills the prompt to read a 2025 release you didn't get to for the readathon, so that's awesome. So I think I completed all the prompts, which is great. And then I also started Coffin Moon. I'm right at the very, very beginning, so I don't have like a ton of thoughts, but it's definitely a gritty horror. And the premise is that we're following this guy who owns a bar. He's a veteran and he's also like a recovering alcoholic, which not great when you own a bar, but okay. And he's married and he's got this niece that he's the guardian of. Her name's Julia, and she's not doing well in school. She's getting in a lot of fights and stuff, kind of like a troubled kid. I think her parents died or whatever, and that's why he's taking care of her. Anyways, and so one thing leads to another, and this guy walks into his bar one day who ends up being a vampire, and this vampire ends up killing one of his family members, and he and his niece Julia go on this like revenge road trip to try and take out the vampire who killed one of their loved ones. And it's very much like a horror vampire revenge story. So anyways, it's definitely gritty too. It has a very gritty vibe to it, and it opens I think in the 70s during Christmas in December. And so it kind of has that sort of Christmas horror vibe at the beginning too. So anyways, I'm enjoying that so far. I don't feel like I'm far enough in to have any like really deep thoughts, but that's kind of where that's at. So I think that's where I'm going to end this vlog. I hope you enjoyed listening to me yap about books and yarn and craft projects and all those things. Let me know in the comments what you're reading. I would love to know. And let me know if you have any books that you still want to get to this month for maybe for Valentine's Day. Are you reading any good romance books? What's on your TBR? What new releases are you excited about that are coming out? Have you read any of the books that I talked about? Especially like the 2025 releases. Are those ones that you guys have heard about too? I would love to know. And thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the end of this vlog and you just want to leave an emoji just to say hi, leave me a little bat emoji in the comments. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye.